The morning our wagon broke down outside Bramble Creek, the wind cut through us like a knife. Mama stood beside the broken wheel with all 9 of us gathered close. She looked so tired, her Norwegian braid coming undone, her hands trembling from days without enough food. I was 8, quiet and watchful, the 4th child, old enough to understand we were in trouble. "Stay close," Mama whispered. "Folks don't want a widow with 9 little ones." In town, people stared but didn't help. The sheriff nodded but kept walking. The women on their porches whispered behind their hands. The storekeeper frowned when Mama asked about work. "I can't take on a whole brood," he said, waving her away like she was asking for charity, not survival. Mama held her chin high, but I saw her eyes dim. I tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Mama, why does nobody want us?" She smiled a sad smile. "Because people fear what they don't understand, Maggie." And then a voice cut across the street. "I reckon that's enough." A tall man on a bay horse watched us, coat flapping in the cold wind. He dismounted slowly, like he didn't want to startle us. Folks in town murmured his name, Colton Hayes, a rancher known for keeping to himself. He crouched so he was eye level with me. "You children hungry?" None of us answered, but he didn't need words to see the truth. When he straightened, he looked right at Mama. "Ma'am, if nobody else will help you, I will." Mama shook her head. "Sir, I can't take charity." "Good thing this ain't charity," he said, voice steady. "I'm offering work, shelter, warm meals. I could use a housekeeper and a cook, and a ranch is no place for silence. It could use children's laughter again." Mama swallowed hard. "Mr. Hayes, I have 9 kids." Before she finished, I whispered the words that had sat heavy in my chest for months. Nobody wanted my mom with 9 kids. The whole street went quiet. Colton removed his hat, placed it against his chest, and said softly but boldly, "Good. I want all of you." Mama gasped. My siblings froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. "Ma'am," he continued, "let me help. Because I choose to." And somehow, that broke something open in Mama. Something tight and tired. That afternoon, we rode toward his ranch, 9 of us packed into his buckboard, Mama sitting stiff beside him, unsure whether to believe in this sudden salvation. The ranch appeared on the horizon, wide fields rolling out beneath the winter sun, a house large enough to shelter a dream we'd long forgotten. Yet as we neared it, Mama whispered a prayer I wasn't meant to hear. "Lord, protect us. No kindness comes without a cost." I didn't understand. Not then. But someone else understood far too well. From the hills above Colton Hayes' land, a man watched us arrive. A man with hatred burning hotter than wildfire. A man who believed the ranch should have belonged to him, and who'd do anything to get it back. And without knowing it, we had just stepped straight into the center of his revenge. Colton Hayes' ranch looked like a kingdom to children who had slept in wagons and cold barns. The house stood 2 stories tall, painted white though the wind had peeled much of it. Smoke curled from the chimney. A wide corral stretched behind it, horses stamping in the frost. Even the fences looked strong, as if nothing bad could cross them. But Mama sat stiff on the wagon seat, fingers knotted together. She kept glancing at Colton like she was trying to understand a man who offered help without asking for anything in return. Men weren't usually like that in the West. The ones who approached widows often wanted things Mama was too proud to give. When we reached the house, Colton hopped down and offered Mama his hand. She hesitated before taking it. "Mr. Hayes, you sure about this? 9 children is a heavy weight." "Ma'am," he said gently, "I've carried heavier burdens." I didn't know what that meant then. Later, I'd wish I never learned. Inside the house, warmth wrapped around us. The floors were wooden and clean, though the place felt too quiet, as if it had been waiting a long time for voices again. We children scattered in wonder, touching chairs and peeking into rooms until Mama called us back with a sharp tone. "Maggie," she whispered to me, "help your brothers keep the little ones close. We don't want to disrespect the man's home." But Colton overheard and shook his head. "Let them explore. It's their home now too." Mama's breath caught, and for a moment she looked like she might cry. But she straightened her shoulders instead. "I'll cook supper. Least I can do." "That'd be mighty kind," he said, "but only if you want to." That was the first time I saw the faintest smile touch Mama's mouth, small, scared, but real. As the evening settled, we ate warm stew until our bellies ached with fullness. Colton didn't sit at the head of the table. Instead, he sat beside Mama, laughing softly when the twins spilled their bowls and helping them clean it up like it was nothing at all. "You must have had a family once," Mama said quietly. Colton's smile faded, shadows slipping into his eyes. "Once." He didn't say more. Mama didn't ask. In the West, everyone carried ghosts. After supper, he showed us where we'd sleep. Boys in one room, girls in another, Mama in a small bedroom near the kitchen. "It ain't much," he said, "but it's safe." Safe. That word sounded like a miracle. Later, when the house was quiet, I couldn't sleep. I crept to the window and saw Colton outside, standing alone near the barn, shoulders heavy, head bowed like the sky itself was pressing down on him. I wondered then, why had a man like him chosen us? Why now? What pain lived behind the kindness? I didn't have answers, but someone else believed they did. 3 days after we arrived, trouble showed itself. It came in the form of a rider approaching the ranch at dusk. He rode a dark horse, coat flapping like wings behind him. Mama was at the stove, and Colton was mending tack. But the moment he heard the hoofbeats, his whole body tensed, as if he recognized the rhythm. The rider didn't knock politely. He dismounted, marched up the steps, and pounded on the door. Colton opened it before Mama could stop him. "What do you want, Silas?" Colton asked, voice colder than winter creek water. Silas Reed. I would learn his name later, whispered with fear in saloons and barns. A man known for temper and greed. A man who believed the world owed him everything. He looked inside the house, eyes landing on Mama, then on me. "So it's true," he sneered. "You brought in strays." Colton stepped between him and us kids. "Watch your mouth." Silas spat into the dirt. "That ranch should have been mine, Hayes. Everyone knows it. My father left it to me." Colton replied, jaw tightening. "We've been over this." Silas's gaze darkened. "He owed my family. Debts don't disappear just because a man dies." Then his eyes drifted toward Mama again, slow, calculating. "Widow," he said, voice dripping with something foul. "You should think twice about staying here. You and your brood might be safer elsewhere." Mama's face went pale, but she lifted her chin. "I appreciate your concern, sir, but this ranch has shown us nothing but kindness." Silas smirked. "Kindness won't protect you when winter turns mean, or when men get desperate." Colton moved forward a step. "You ride home now, Silas, before you say something you can't take back." Silas leaned close, whispering something I couldn't hear, but whatever it was, Colton's hand twitched near his revolver. Then Silas swung into his saddle and rode off, leaving dust swirling in the dying light. Mama shut the door fast and locked it. The house felt colder, even with the fire blazing. "Mr. Hayes," Mama asked softly, "are we in danger?" Colton didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed fixed on the darkening horizon, as though shadows there held the pieces of a past that refused to stay buried. Finally, he said only, "Not if I can help it." But that wasn't a promise. It was a warning. The morning after Silas Reed's visit, the ranch felt different. The sky was clear, the frost glittered on the fence rails, but something heavy hung in the air, like a storm waiting behind a blue sky. Mama tried to pretend nothing was wrong, humming softly while she baked bread. But her eyes kept drifting toward the windows, watching the horizon instead of the dough. Colton worked outside early, checking the barns, fixing latches, walking the fence line with a focus so sharp it didn't look like ranch work anymore. It looked like preparation, like bracing for trouble. When he came in for coffee, Mama finally asked, "Mr. Hayes, what does that man want from you?" Colton set the cup down, both hands wrapped around it like he needed its warmth. "Silas wants what he's always wanted. The ranch, the land, and anything he thinks belongs to him." "And does it?" Mama whispered. Colton looked at her then, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them. "No, ma'am," he said quietly. "Nothing here belongs to Silas Reed." But he didn't say the rest out loud. That wouldn't stop Silas from trying to take it anyway. As days passed, we settled into ranch life. Mama cleaned and cooked. The older boys fed livestock. The young ones carried water and learned chores. I followed Colton everywhere, watching the way he moved with horses, the way he talked to them softly but firmly. I'd never seen a man with such gentleness in hands that could also lift a saddle one-handed. One afternoon, he found me sitting in the barn doorway, braiding straw. "Your mama says you're a quiet one." I shrugged. "Quiet lets me hear things other folks miss." His lips twitched, almost a smile. And what you heard? I hesitated. You're afraid. He froze, surprised. And what makes you think that? Because you walk the fences at night, I said. And when you look toward town, your jaw gets tight. Colton sat beside me, elbows resting on his knees. You're sharper than most grown men. I'm sharper than most grown men in town, I corrected, and he actually laughed. But the laughter faded quickly. You're right, Maggie. I am afraid. Not for myself. For everyone under this roof. My fingers stilled on the straw. Because of Silas? He didn't deny it. He's the kind of man who lets bitterness get in his bones. And a man like that, he doesn't quit. I swallowed hard. Will he hurt us? Colton's voice softened. Not while I can stand between you and him. And even though I was only 8, I believed him. That belief was tested sooner than any of us expected. A week after we arrived, a blizzard rolled in fast, the kind that turns daylight to gray and swallows sound. Colton had the boys help him secure the animals while Mama herded us inside. The wind screamed against the walls, and snow piled high enough to bury a horse. We huddled near the stove, blankets wrapped around us. Colton came in last, covered in ice, boots heavy with snow. Mama rushed toward him. You should have come in sooner. Had to tie the barn doors tight, he said, brushing off frost. Wind nearly took one clean off. As he warmed his hands, something thudded against the house. Then again, slow, deliberate, not the wind. Colton's face hardened. Stay back, he said, reaching for his rifle by the door. Mama gathered us close, her heartbeat trembling against my shoulder. Colton stepped onto the porch, snow swirling around him. I crept to the window, peeking past the curtain. A figure stood out there. Not Silas. A boy, maybe 17, shivering violently, clothes soaked, lips blue. Colton lowered the rifle instantly. Get inside before the storm takes you. The boy collapsed into the snow. Colton carried him in, setting him near the stove. Mama rushed to fetch blankets. When the boy finally spoke, his voice cracked like breaking ice. Please, don't send me back. Colton knelt beside him. Back where? The boy's eyes filled with terror. Silas Reed's camp. The room went still. Colton exchanged a long look with Mama. I felt fear crawl up my spine. The boy wasn't done. He's got men. Guns. He said. He said he'd take the ranch once the snow clears. Colton's jaw clenched until a muscle jumped. Mama whispered, Lord help us. The boy reached for Colton's sleeve. He said you stole everything from him. He said a man like you doesn't deserve land or a family. Colton slowly stood, breathing deep as if steadying something dangerous inside him. Silas Reed doesn't get to decide what I deserve, he said quietly. And he doesn't get to touch anyone under this roof. But I saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't just preparing anymore. He was bracing for war. The storm howled for 2 days straight, trapping us inside the house while snow piled high against the windows. The boy we'd taken in lay bundled near the stove, drifting in and out of fever. Mama tended to him with her gentle hands, whispering soft prayers in Norwegian, the ones she only used when fear pressed hard against her ribs. Colton barely slept. He paced from window to window, checking the doors, the barn, the tree-line. Every now and then he'd pause, jaw tight, as though listening for something hidden inside the wind. I watched him, and even at 8 years old, I knew he was carrying something heavy. On the third morning, the boy finally woke with clearer eyes. He introduced himself, name's Eli. Mama offered him warm broth. He took it gratefully, hands shaking. I didn't know where else to go, he said. Silas, he ain't just angry. He's planning something bad. Colton knelt beside him. Eli, why were you with Silas's men? Eli hesitated. Because I thought he was a good man once. He helped my ma when she was sick. Gave us food. A place to stay. But when she died, something changed in him. He started drinking mean. Talking about debts folks owed him. Talking about you. Colton didn't flinch, but Mama saw the shadows deepen in his eyes. What does Silas want? Mama asked. Eli swallowed. Everything you have. He says this ranch should have been his. Says your pa stole it. Colton stood, turning away. I'd heard his footsteps heavy before, but this sounded different, like a man walking toward a memory he didn't want. Mama followed him. Mr. Hayes, what truth is this child speaking? Colton took a long breath. My father didn't steal the ranch, but he did make a choice that cost Silas's family dearly. They were partners once, close as brothers. Then Silas's father gambled his share of the land away to cover debts. Lost it fair and square. My father didn't cheat him, didn't trick him. But folks don't like to remember the truth when the lie feels easier. And Silas, Mama pressed. He grew up believing we ruined him, Colton said. And he spent years waiting for a chance to ruin us back. The wind rattled the window then, like a warning. When the storm finally broke, the world outside glowed white and silent. The snow was so deep it reached the lower barn windows. Colton helped Eli to a chair near the table, but the boy still looked frightened. He's gonna come, Eli whispered. Storm or no storm. Silas said nothing would stop him. Mama placed a firm hand on Eli's shoulder. You're safe here. We all are. But we weren't. Not really. That afternoon, Colton saddled his horse. Mama came onto the porch, clutching her shawl tight. Mr. Hayes, where are you going? To town, he said. Need to speak to the sheriff. Need to warn folks. You can't go alone, she insisted. Silas's men might be out there. Colton gave her a small, tired smile. I've handled worse. But Mama stepped closer, lowering her voice. Colton, we need you here. He looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time since we arrived, I saw something tender in his expression, something he was trying very hard to ignore. I won't bring trouble back to your door, he said gently. But I can't sit idle while danger grows. And before she could argue again, he rode off into the white horizon. Evening fell, and Colton hadn't returned. Mama grew quieter with each passing hour. The younger children played softly on the rug, but the rest of us sat still, listening for hoofbeats that never came. Eli stared into his cup, guilt clouding his face. This is my fault, he whispered. If I hadn't run. You ran because your heart knew right from wrong, Mama said. That is never something to regret. I wanted to believe her, but fear crawled up my spine like a cold hand. When the moon rose, lighting the snow with a ghostly shimmer, we finally heard it. Hoofbeats. Slow. Dragging. Not the strong, steady rhythm of Colton's horse. Mama moved toward the window but stopped short, breath catching in her throat. Maggie, she whispered, keep the little ones close. My heart hammered. The horse came into view, rider slumped in the saddle. For one terrible moment, I thought it was Colton injured. But when the horse reached the porch light, Mama gasped. It wasn't Colton. It was his horse. And the saddle was empty. The reins hung loose, coated in ice. And tied to the saddle horn was a piece of leather, burned around the edges, carved with one name. Hayes. Eli's voice trembled. Silas took him. Mama closed her eyes, her hand pressed over her heart as if trying to keep it from breaking. And I knew then that the rancher who had saved us was now the one who needed saving. When Colton's horse stood riderless in the snow, Mama didn't cry, didn't collapse, didn't lose herself the way some women might. Instead, she stepped onto the porch, her breath rising in cold clouds, and stared into the dark as if she could will him back. Eli stood beside her, shivering though he was wrapped in 2 quilts. Silas took him, he whispered. He said he'd break Colton Hayes before he let him keep anything. Mama's hands shook, but her voice was steady. Then we're going to get him back. The children stared at her, wide-eyed. Even I, who had seen her hold our family together through hunger and storms, had never seen her like this. Fierce, determined, unbreakable. Mama, Jonas said, we can't face Silas Reed alone. We won't, Mama replied. We have the Lord, we have each other, and we have truth. Eli stepped forward. I know where Silas might have taken him. His camp. It's in the old quarry past the ridge. Mama nodded once. Decisively. Show me. The night was bitter cold as Mama prepared the wagon. She bundled the youngest children with quilts and tucked them close. The older boys carried lanterns and tools that might pass for weapons. Mama checked every corner of the house, securing it tight. Before we left, she knelt in the snow, pulling me close. Maggie, she whispered, fear makes people foolish. But courage makes them steady. Be steady tonight. I nodded, heart pounding but certain. Mama's certainty was catching, like fire. Eli climbed into the wagon beside her, pointing toward the ridge. We'll see the torchlight from far off. Silas always keeps his camp lit. The wheels crunched through deep snow as we rode into the night. The moon hung low, silvering the world, and every shadow felt alive. But Mama drove that wagon like a soldier marching toward battle. After an hour, we saw it, a pulsing orange glow flickering beyond the hill. That's his camp, Eli whispered. Mama halted the wagon. Children, stay quiet. Stay behind me. We crept through the snow, hearts pounding, breath trembling. Voices echoed below, rough laughter, clinking bottles, the sharp crack of wood tossed on a fire. Men surrounded a large tent at the center of the quarry. And somewhere inside that tent was Colton. Mama didn't wait for dawn. She didn't wait for chance. She stepped into the clearing like a woman with nothing left to lose. Silas Reed, she called, voice ringing across the camp. Every head snapped toward her. Guns rose. The fire hissed as snowflakes landed on its flames. Silas came out of the tent slowly, wiping his hands on his coat. He smiled that crooked, venomous smile. "Mrs. Anderson," he drawled, "come to collect what doesn't belong to your family." Mama didn't flinch. "I've come for a good man. A man you had no right to take." Silas shrugged. "Colton Hayes took plenty from my father. I'm just settling old debts." "Your father gambled away his land," Mama said. "And you blame the wrong man because truth hurts more than hate." Silas's face darkened. "You speak bold for a woman with 9 mouths to feed." "I speak bold," Mama said softly, "because my children deserve a world where men like you don't win." That stung. Silas grabbed Mama by the arm. But before he could drag her closer, a voice rasped from the tent. "Let her go." Colton, alive, though his face was bruised, his lip cut, his coat torn. 2 men held him, but he stood tall despite it. Silas smirked. "You should thank me, Hayes. I could have left you for the wolves. And yet here I am," Colton said, still standing. I don't know if it was the tone of his voice or Mama's unyielding stare, but something shifted. Eli stepped forward then, trembling but brave. "Silas," Eli said, "your pa didn't lose the ranch because of the Hayes family. He lost it because he lied, drank, and gambled. You know it. You just don't want to admit you're the same." The camp went silent. Even Silas's men stiffened. Truth was dangerous when spoken aloud. Silas's mouth twisted, fury boiling over. He raised his revolver. But Colton moved. Even restrained, he lunged, knocking Silas off balance. The revolver fired into the snow, echoing across the quarry. Chaos erupted. Silas's men scrambled, some pulling Colton away, others shouting. Mama grabbed a fallen lantern and smashed it into the snow between Silas and the men. Flames flared up, startling horses and scattering men in panic. In the confusion, Colton broke free and ran to us. Mama grabbed his arm, and together we fled toward the wagon. Silas roared behind us, but his men were too disorganized, too shaken by the truth Eli had spoken. We made it to the wagon. Colton lifted me, the other children, then Mama climbed up last. Jonas snapped the reins, and the horses leapt forward. Behind us, the quarry grew smaller, dimmer, then vanished behind the ridge. Silas Reed did not follow. Truth had broken him more thoroughly than any bullet. When we returned to the ranch, dawn was just beginning to color the sky. Colton stood in the yard, breathing the cold air like it tasted new. He turned to Mama. "You risked everything for me." Mama shook her head. "You risked everything first." Their eyes held, warm despite the snow around us. Colton's voice softened. "I meant what I said the day we met. I want all of you if you'll have me." Mama's breath caught. 9 children watched her, hope shining like sunrise. Finally, she whispered, "Yes." And just like that, the ranch, his ranch, our ranch, felt like home. Not because it sheltered us, but because love had finally found us in the Old West, where so few believed a woman with 9 children could ever be wanted.